Moana 2 is busting all the records, as Anthony D'Alessandro at Deadline Magazine points out. And to see what that looks like in terms of real numbers, you've got to look here. $221 million at the domestic box office is the estimate through Monday morning, along with another $165 million from international markets, where it's pretty much opened up everywhere so far. But the issue with things like Moana 2 is what you can see here. The critics and the audience reaction seems to be maybe a little bit more tepid than the Walt Disney Company would have hoped. And with repeated article and review headlines similar to this one, you kind of have to wonder what is the real leg-out potential for this film. Now, I still think this movie could make $1 billion, but let's talk about some of the real numbers here.
Renegade Online.
Moana 2, follow-up to a movie that Disney did, an animated feature that Disney did, what was it, 7-8 years ago now? I think it was 2016. It really doesn't matter. Moana became a resurgent, popular commodity for the Walt Disney Company in the last year or two. When the original film became super popular on Disney Plus again, became the most watched Disney thing on Disney Plus during the course of the year. Besides, of course, Bluey, which is not a Disney thing. It's just a thing that Disney leases. And this drove Disney, of course, in any good business decision, to make a follow-up to it. And originally, of course, Moana was destined to be a Disney Plus show. They shifted gears rather radically and decided to take what was designed to be a Disney Plus show and turn it into a feature theatrical release. And funny enough, that's almost exactly what a lot of reviewers out there noticed. And we heard a number of critics out there talking about, including Alan Ng from Film Thread, our friend that was here. It was rather disappointing. It really wasn't that good. There wasn't a lot of heart to it. The music was frankly not all that wonderful or memorable. My reaction was, it's probably still going to open huge. The question is what happens after that. And it's opening at the right time. The Thanksgiving weekend, this is always a big weekend, especially for family films, and something that's a known commodity like Moana. It's a known franchise. And this is what's great. This is great for theaters. The 5-day U.S. box office hitting an all-time high, 420 million cumulative box office for the 5-day. After November 30th post, the Thanksgiving stretch is delivering an unprecedented estimated 420 million at the box office. That's according to ComScore since our post yesterday. Moana 2 pulled in 17.4 million admissions. What's clear in the current post-COVID marketplace is that while there is no floor to when a movie bombs, there is also no ceilings to when movies connect. And that's what we have here at Moana 2, Wicked, and Gladiator 2 over the Wednesday to Sunday holiday. Now, I don't know if we could really say that, especially Gladiator, if it's so much connecting. So for this one, when we look at the Wednesday through Sunday tally for all movies, breaks the previous Thanksgiving record for titles in 2018, when Ralph Breaks the Internet drove the marketplace to 315.6 million total, which, again, at 420 million, that's a solid step up. That's a $100 million step up. Now, granted, we've had roughly a 30% ticket price inflation pressure since 2018 and 2019. So if we were just to simply adjust that 2018 record-busting box office there at 315 million and put it in today's ticket prices, we're going to find that they're relatively on par. So, of course, the theaters are happy. This is great news for AMC. I can't stress that enough. But I want to follow it up with some of the other stories that have come since then. All the box office records broken for Moana 2, says D'Alessandro. This is also from today, Sunday, December 1st. Moana 2 proved once again, after Universal's Wicked, that musicals aren't dead on the big screen. It doesn't matter if they're animated or not, and the list of the box office records the Disney sequel broke in its opening weekend after a domestic 3-day of 135, a 5-day of 221 is what it's looking like it's coming down to, international of 165, and a worldwide haul of 386. That's just Moana 2. The original Moana ended its domestic run at 248 million and 643 million globally. In a matter of days, the sequel here from David Derrick Jr., Jason Han, and Dana Ledoux Miller will overtake those figures. So the highest domestic 5-day opening of all time, surpassing Super Mario Brothers movie at 204.6. It's a hell of a thing. Give it credit. But again, now, to be fair, Super Mario Brothers also didn't open over that Thanksgiving holiday frame. So a little bit different, but again, it's close. It's within about 10, they think about $10 to $15 million at this point. A little bit of inflation adjustment on that, maybe about 10% since Super Mario Brothers came out. And I think it's probably up about 10 to 15% since then. Highest Thanksgiving weekend of all time by far. Frozen 2's holdover take of $125 million 5-day. And again, a holdover take because it came out the weekend before. So this was an actual Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving release for Moana, unlike Frozen, apparently, or Frozen 2. Highest Thanksgiving debut, more than doubling Frozen's $94 million 5-day and $67 million 3-day. That's the first Frozen. That was in like 11 years ago. Ticket prices have significantly increased since then, although it does seem like it would still be better. Best Thanksgiving Day take, $28 million, which I thought was really impressive. The Thanksgiving Day take for Moana, a solid $28 million, which is, when I saw that, I was like, wow, that really, I was really surprised by how good that was. I was thinking maybe 15 to 20, similar to Frozen 2, with a bit of a deference towards the inflation pressures that have happened since then. When I saw 28, I was like, whoa. So yeah, that Disney Plus popularity really did drive this one. But again, yet to be determined how far this will carry out. Highest ever Black Friday at the box office, $54.5 million, exceeding Frozen 2's $34.2. Again, just phenomenal. Phenomenal news for them. Beating Frozen 2's opening $130 million take, record opening for a Walt Disney animated feature. This is where the records get a little funny. First time a Hollywood star had 2 number 1 openings in a calendar month. Dwayne Johnson. Moana 2 and Red 1. Red 1 owned the weekend that it opened by virtue of the fact that nothing else was there. And it was not that big of an opening. It was, honestly, it was rather embarrassing. Now, again, these are estimates. And with the way that this has tracked through the weekend, I wouldn't at all be surprised to see actual numbers that get released, say, sometime tomorrow afternoon as being even higher than this. Maybe another, maybe 223, maybe 224, 225. Could be 1 or 2% more than what's actually popping in here. Would not be at all surprising for that side. But I want you to look at the international box office at 165. So definitely it's more heavily weighted towards the U.S., which is not horribly unsurprising. But a hell of a solid start here at $386 million. Budget-wise for this is going to be screwy. I don't know if there's a lot of solid information that's come out on what was spent on this film yet. Again, because this started out as a Disney Plus show that was then converted into a film. And I'm really wondering, we've seen recently how Disney titles, especially animated features, they're still routinely dropping $200 million on these things. And I'm sure the marketing budget for this, Disney knowing what they had, I'm betting was at least $150 million. Moana 2 also probably had a rather significant amount of marketing partnerships like Wicked did, although can't imagine be as much as what Wicked had, which is even more insane. On the international side, I think most markets have opened with the exception of Japan. It's the only one here, and Japan is usually the outlier. Usually it's later. So December 6th, it will open in Japan then. I'd be curious to see how well this will actually do in that foreign market, but this was effectively a completely unified global release. I think this movie is going to continue to leg out fairly well, even though it's not as being critically well received, musically as well received as the first one. There's no reason with a start like this, and with us driving right into Christmas at this point, 24 days away, which is crazy to me. This movie should continue to hold well. I can't imagine this movie not breaking $1 billion. I'll be very, very shocked if it doesn't. With a start like this, you're basically talking about going a little over 2.5x from its opening weekend to get to $1 billion from here. For a movie like this, should be a cakewalk. And Disney should be very, very happy with this. From what we know with this, they went from start to finish on making this a movie in, I think, 6 to 8 months, if memory serves. I think we've had this conversation before. Hopefully they were able to keep things budgeted somewhat similar to what we see from, say, an Illumination or a DreamWorks picture, where you're spending maybe $100 to $120 million. But we're not entirely sure yet. Of course, the first thing that comes up is something from Screen Rant, a source that we can always trust, right? Oh, God. But let's make a safe assumption and say $150 million. That's probably it. Screen Rant says Moana 2's budget was likely around $150 million. Well, what do you know? I think, honestly, $150 million is a reasonable assumption for marketing. So I think probably $300 million at least all in on a movie like this is where they are. In other words, Moana 2 probably needs to get to at least $600 million, I would suspect, strongly, to reach a break-even point, which, as of right now, this movie should have absolutely no difficulty in doing that whatsoever.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.